All right, Nick Fasoli. This is a tough week for me. This is, I imagine, for you too. I- As much as like I want to say the Patriots went toe to toe against Dallas, and the Cowboys are a wagon, and they've got arguably the best offense in football. And just 2 weeks ago, the Pats went to a final play of the game against Tampa Bay, and so yeah, hey, let's feel good about it. They're still 2-4. And this is a team that it's just beyond frustration. It's to the point where I'm ready to say they're just not a good team. They're not the team that we all hoped that they would be. And more than anything, they're playing down to the level of their competition or up to the level of the competition, but that will only get you wins against really garbage teams, close wins against Houston, easy wins against the Jets, but then losses against the decent teams like Miami and losses to the really good teams like Dallas and Tampa. And I'm hoping that talking to you about it and then talking to our guest will help me vent and sort of be like scream therapy. Like I'll be able to push through and come out the other side with some sort of mental health. But tell me I'm wrong to be this frustrated and that I should just sort of be glad that they're competitive in these games, but that's not how we're wired after 20 years of success.
No, you're totally right, Jerry. I mean, I don't think any of us expected a season like this so far. I mean, I think we have a chance to come back, hopefully, but I don't think even going into that game, we were expecting that to occur. I mean, we've gone week to week so far where it's either we have a defense the entire game or we have an offense the entire game. And we haven't been able to put two and two together and create the exact math equation to win a football game. And
right.
yesterday,
and so many little plays where would have made a difference that you used to rely on them to convert those things. It's now the opposite. I mean, they've had 2 blocked punts in as many weeks. I think the last time they had a blocked punt was like 2005. So you just sit there and go, is this what it's been like to be an NFL fan of any other franchise for the last 21 years? Because I do not like, so I'm sorry. And I know I stepped right over you, but you were making a point about specific plays.
Oh, no, go ahead. I mean, yeah, it's definitely shocking to all of us who have lived through the 20 years and the 2 decades of championships we've went through. I mean, I grew up not even having to not make it to the playoffs every year. I think there was 1 year we didn't make it to the playoffs, and was it Matt Castle or did he make it?
No, they okay. So 2002 they didn't. They went 9-7, which actually tied for the division lead, but they lost in a tiebreaker. And then with Matt Castle, they went 11-5, also tied for the league lead, but again lost in a tiebreaker. And so last year felt like a total outlier. And I think they had a better record through 6 games than,
which is shocking to even say.
Right. We do right now. And it's a team that's finding ways to lose. And again, look, the Cowboys are better in every aspect. Like the talk going into this week was accurate when you said, okay, they have a better offensive line. Their tight end is better than either of the Patriots tight ends. Their receivers are better than any of the Pats receivers all the way down the line. But I just never expected that the defense would be so utterly helpless. Like that was going to be a strength of this Pats team. They gave up a Patriots record 567 total yards.
Yeah.
454 yards through the air for Dak Prescott, which is more than a Belichick team has ever given up. And okay, I get some of it was like, this is a really quick strike team. They'll take deep shots. So you want to keep everything in front of you and play soft zones. We've lived through the bend, don't break eras before, and sometimes it works. This didn't work on any single level. like other than the turnovers. They made
Mhm.
two big red zone stops, but by the
Yeah.
time they got to overtime, the Cowboys had 10 possessions and got into at least field goal range on 8 of them. That's insane. That's even in 2021, defenses don't do that. Even the worst defense in the league, you occasionally get some 3 and outs. You occasionally keep a team on their own side of the field, and that's why the frustration is through the roof right now, and why I have this vein popping out of the side of my head that has only happened before when my kids were younger, and they could get this vein to pop out, but the friggin' Patriots managed to do that in this game, like they did the week before with Davis Mills, where they made him look like Dak Prescott. And
Yeah.
so now you just find yourself saying, who are these people? What is this team? And what has Belichick created with them? Are they going to be able to pull out of this?
I agree with most of that, but the one thing that I have to disagree on is I don't think the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think they have better tight ends than us. I wouldn't say either side is better, but Blake Jarwin, in comparison to Jonnu Smith, who he hasn't yet fully shown himself, or Hunter Henry, I don't think he's better than Hunter Henry. Blake Jarwin, he was what, a rookie 2 years ago.
Yeah.
If I'm correct, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
But I don't think he's better than who we have. I think we haven't just found that potential yet. And if it doesn't matter if it's the offensive line holding anyone back because we're having to keep more to block for Mac, or if we're just not hitting the correct plays yet. But there's something we are missing, and the one thing that I hated seeing was like slacking off. And New England's never been about that, and that's what we saw from this defense last night against the Cowboys. I mean, I'm pretty sure Devin McCourty got beat multiple times as well, and that's not like Devin. But also Jalen Mills in overtime getting beat after just sleeping on an entire play. That just blew my mind how he's even considered to still be a starter.
Well, the thing is, Mills has been next to Matt Judon, I think their best signing. And then he misses last week, and they have this crap game against a really pathetic Houston Texans team. And, Davis Mills goes from, no touchdowns and 4 picks and 87 yards the week before to 300 plus yards and 3 touchdowns or whatever. And I'm saying, okay, maybe Jalen Mills. He's super important. Maybe they beat him. And maybe they missed him really terribly. So they're going with Joanne Williams or whatever. So he comes back, and I'm ready to embrace that. And again, he just got burned. CeeDee Lamb, I think 149 yards off the top of my head, and he's good. No one's that good. That's breakdowns and coverage. That's given way too soft a zone. That's missed tackles or whatever. And I guess I want to cut Mills Smith. Wow, there you go, Jerry. English is my new language. I want to cut Mills some slack just because he's been so good to this point, but there's no putting a shine on that sneaker. Like they just gave up yards in giant chunks the entire game. They were playing way off of guys. And for the longest time, Prescott was just, taking what they were giving them. Like you're getting a soft cushion, right? You're giving him the memory foam mattress cushion. He's going to take advantage of it. But then when he went deep, that was open too. When he went intermediate, that was there too. And so finally, the Pats ball out on a cover 0 blitz in overtime, and Mills is all alone, and Prescott is not going to miss that opportunity. So he's good. The team is good. The Patriots were as close to non-competitive as you can be, even allowing for the fact that they were facing arguably the best offense in football. There's just no excuse for not being able to keep them out of field goal range on more than a couple of drives over a game where your offense really stepped up and was playing basically, I don't want to say out of their heads, but they were putting points on the board. 29 points at home should win you a game.
I don't disagree. But if anything, if you want to put a bright point to it, excuse me, the Patriots defensive line, I think, was the bright point of this last game. Holding Ezekiel Elliott to 69 rushing yards, that is, in my book, that's a win. Obviously, he probably he had more reception yards, but being able to hold him back and not allow him to do what he does, we would have been, I think, 40-piece if the D-line didn't hold Zeke back.
Yep. I thought, Dietrich Wise drew a couple of penalties, made some nice stops. And Christian Barmore, I was really high on him. We talked about him, like you in the preseason, how much I was looking forward to this guy. I saw a graph out of, I think, Next Gen Stats that had him drawing the most double teams in the entire league. And
gets double teamed a ton.
Yes, and he was making stops, but none of this that we're talking about materialized into a pass rush at all. Like I'm convinced that after the game, Prescott just kind of like didn't throw his uniform in the hamper. He just kind of like gave it the sniff test. Like, oh, this is fine. I'll just hang it in my locker, because they didn't touch it. Well, they certainly didn't sack him. 51 dropbacks. He's the first guy in the NFL this year to have that many dropbacks and not get sacked. And if they hit him 4 times, and I think they did, I don't remember any of those 4 times. And I don't know how much of that was containment and how much of it was the saying, let's not just rush 3 guys. Let's drop people into, the middle hole of the defense and try to take away between the hashes on them. A lot of that has to still be figured out, but I think for the most part, they played soft coverages, and Prescott was only too happy to take full advantage of that. And in spite of, by the way, the fact that Mike McCarthy managed to Mike McCarthy and give the Pats the ball like on the doorstep. That business of going for it on 4th down and is backed up in his own end. Mm-hmm. And not only do that, which was idiotic, but then challenge the play that nobody on the planet Earth, not named Mike McCarthy, thought was a first down. And so, okay, you get that advantage, that dumb thing that other teams have always done that the Patriots have taken advantage of, and they take advantage of it, and it still wasn't enough because they still made their own dumb mistakes. So, a blocked punt and not going for it on 4th down in overtime, which we'll get into with our guests, I'm sure. But I just for the life of me right now don't know who this team is. They're not aggressive. That much I know. They've got some talent. They flash, but if you ask me to define this team in 140 characters or less, I don't know. I need to write a book on them.
I totally understand. If I gave you these 2 names right now, after 6 weeks, what would you say about them specifically, and what would you do with them? And the 2 names I'm going to give you is N'Keal Harry and Nelson Aguilar. What would you do with those?
Okay, N'Keal Harry, and I wrote about this on Monday, I've decided is the worst acquisition in the Belichick era. And I chose that term specifically because I'm not limiting to free agent signings, trades, or draft picks. We can break those down and have an adult discussion about who is the worst trade, blah, blah, blah. I'm saying the worst player that he's obtained in terms of return on investment on what it took to get him, however you define that, is officially N'Keal Harry. So there was one play that he made that stood out, and it was after a 21-yard carry by Damian Harris, and then Harris had another 6-yarder. It brought it down inside the 15. So they're facing 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5. I want to say it was, and it's Jonnu Smith is split out wide, and Harry's in the slot, and Mac Jones looks out at him, and he gives him that thing you do where you step on your heel to like, okay, now go in motion. And Harry's just like out in like la la land. He's not paying any attention. So he gets the call. Now Jones is just like, he's signaling him in Morse code. He's going in semaphore. He's got an Aldous lamp. He's like flashing at him, and finally just goes, go in motion, go in motion. And Tony Romo starts like losing his mind, going, you got to snap the ball. He's got to go in motion. The clock is running down. And by the time Jones got the ball, he had enough wherewithal to just say, I can't pull out of this play. So we just chucked it over Smith's head out of bounds. You're N'Keal Harry. You got your first playbook in May of 2019, and you don't know when you're supposed to go in motion. Everybody else on the field does. Damian Harris, who's been in the league for 3 years, does, and Smith, who's only been with the team since the spring, and Jones, who got his playbook in May
6 months ago.
Right, exactly. Because last year he was planning for Georgia and Auburn. He's frustrated. And if you watch the play again, and it's available, a lot of people posted it on Twitter, and I put it on Barstool, as he finally snaps Jones out of it. And he finally snaps Harry out of it, and he's running behind him. Jones is yelling at him what the play is. Like, I'm done. He's had 3 targets this year for 2 receptions. In his career, he's got, and don't ask me the exact numbers, because I was told there'd be no math on this, but he's got like 450 receiving yards. There are 14 guys in the NFL who have more than that this season. And 4 of them were drafted the same year as Harry. And I mean,
Jesus.
Yeah. So he came in 2019. So did Jacoby Myers, who was undrafted, and he's got like 369 yards this year. That's what Harry has in his career, is 400 plus yards. It's done. I would trade him right now for a conditional 7th rounder or somebody else's like bottom of the roster guy, but he's now a blocking wide receiver. That's it. A blocking wide receiver. And then we'll move on to your next guy. But before you think he's a blocking wide receiver and say the model of like Hines Ward, Pro Football Focus grades everybody on a scale of 0 to 99. As a blocking receiver in this game, they gave him like a 55.1. They gave Mac Jones a 60.2 as a blocker, as a run blocker. That's all you need to know. I defended him until about this time last year. I think I was the last person off that island. If you're still defending him, if you still have hope, congratulations. You are the sole N'Keal Harry survivor. There's not $1 million, though. Jeff Probst is not going to give you a check. You just have the satisfaction of knowing that you are still have hope for this guy that I'm done with. So thank you for that rant. Nelson Aguilar, he's still capable of doing really impressive things sometime, but what was the knock on him coming out of Oakland? He has bad drops, and what a atrocious drop that was. I mean, Kendrick Bourne, no, I'm sorry. Jacoby Myers had his bad one going up the sidelines last week. This was overtime. You needed it. It was a short throw. It was right in his hands, and he had nothing but green space in front of him. And that ball landed on the ground. And yes, they picked up the first down on the subsequent play to Myers. But, that's what you were brought here to do, is to make that catch and turn it into yards. And he might have gone the distance.
Yeah, he could have.
Yep. Just another example of this team not doing those things that you used to be able to count on them to do in the big high leverage moments.
You don't have the Julian Edelman. You don't have the Wes Welker. You don't have anyone anymore who would make those catches 100% of the time.
Yep.
And if they didn't make the catches, they were either hurt or triple covered.
Yep. Or I'll throw in like Danny Amendola. Chris Hogan had some drops too, but I mean, he had some of the biggest catches in the biggest situations. I mean, none bigger than the Super Bowl against Atlanta in overtime when it's, 3rd and 10 on the Patriots 8, and he catches a 17-yard deep out
Yep.
and puts them like in on the map. And he was never like a big money free agent the way Aguilar is. So they're counting on him, and he rarely proves that he's able to be counted on. How did he get 18 yards per catch last season? It's beyond me. I see him as nothing but a decoy. Like he's someone
looks
that
like he lives in the movie theaters to me.
Yeah. We'll draw off like a corner with a go route so that they can throw a ball to Hunter Henry in the end zone underneath. But he's just that guy. He's there to draw coverage, not to beat coverage.
Yeah.
And by the
and he was one on one on that throw too. Like it wasn't even that he was double covered.
Yep.
And he beat him inside too. He had the total correct positioning, everything.
And Jones had it read perfectly and delivered a perfect strike right there.
Strike to him.
Yep. So Jones's biggest throws before we start kicking it to our guest. Yeah, that Hunter Henry throw was brilliant. Like, that Henry kind of looked like he was doing a curl underneath the go route and just did a double move and broke it off inside and got total leverage. Let's see, it was Malik, 28. I'm flaking on his last name. It's not important, but he had the inside leverage, and Jones delivered the ball right there, like a total like gutsy throw and great read. But then maybe the moment that really established Jones is like how mentally tough I think he is. He throws that pick six, and not a great throw, not the worst one or whatever, but Dallas is going to do what Dallas does. They're going to pick these balls off. They're going to take them to the house. That's their game. The very next time he gets the ball, he sees, yes, exactly. It's Kendrick Bourne breaking open. He sees that, he had a go route on the other side so they were on the boundary side, and then on the field side, the wider side of the field, it was Jacoby Myers going deep. The safety had to roll over there, and he read that he was going to be late getting over. So he delivers this perfect, like just laser guided missile right into Bourne's hand. And, he goes 75 yards. Like I think it's 99 out of 100 rookie quarterbacks after throwing a 45-yard pick six are going to turtle, right? They're going to be afraid to make that throw. Nope. He just had the guts to the confidence in what he's seeing and in his receivers. And, it's still another loss, but you can't come out of that feeling anything but confident that they've found their quarterback of the future. Am I crazy for saying that, Nick?
No, not at all. I mean, it just takes time. And honestly, it may take this year and hopefully next year we put it all together. But everything great doesn't come in one day. Rome wasn't built in a day.
If it did, we would have hired a contractor, as they say.
Right.
No kidding. In my town, they were redoing an overpass over a highway. And I mean, 4-lane road over a highway. It took 9 years. They didn't tear it down. They were just redoing it. And I said, the Aqua Appia built 2,000 years ago in Rome, they had it done in a year. Now, granted, maybe they didn't pay the help that much and they didn't have like OSHA regulations, but okay, Rome wasn't built in a day. You're absolutely right. Unfortunately, like I didn't want to be following Rome when they were 2-4 and about to fall 3 games behind the Bills. Yeah, exactly. I've said it before. I'll say it to you again. What do we want? Instant gratification. When do we want it? What do you think? So I'm happy to have our guest this week, man. This guy's good insofar as, by his own admission, gets a lot of negativity thrown at him by Patriots fans. I've thrown a lot of shade at the stuff that he's written because he's a contrarian. He's a contrarian for the number one contrarian media outlet in New England, which is the Boston Globe. So we're going to have Ben Vollin on. I like him as a guy, like his reporting. We don't always agree with each other, but he was great with his time. And I'm absolutely psyched that he was willing to come on our little rocket ship to the moon here, taking time away from his wife and kids that he had since the last time I hung out with him, and we'll get into that. But he had a lot of great insights. Tough way to to be able to process a game like this, and the Pats being 2 games under 500. But it was a fun interview with him. Did you agree?
Yeah, very much so. So let's give it to the people.
There we go. Okay. Joining us now is our good friend from the Boston Globe, Ben Vollin. Enjoy. And Nick, I don't know if I've told you this, but part of my personal journey was when I first got hired by WEEI, and I'm in this for like a couple of months, and the Patriots go to the Super Bowl, and so I'm there in Phoenix. This was Super Bowl 49 against the Seahawks, and I really didn't know what my role was. I was doing radio, but I was also doing like my own like kind of section of their .com. And I'm hanging out with these other writers, and we're in a hotel room together. And some of them are like doing actual reporting on the stories of the day. There's another guy who like every day is like writing the transcripts of interviews and stuff. And I'm like, I don't think that's my role. I'm just sort of feeling my way along. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? My job is to tell people what it's like to be at a Super Bowl. So I felt it my personal professional responsibility to go to the parties. And they had a media party. I hopped on a bus and I went to it. And one of the people that I got to hang out with at that quite a bit, drinking beer on the NFL's dime, was our guest today, Ben Vollin. Ben, I don't know if you remember you and me hanging out at that thing. Do you at all?
I do. Our eyes twinkled. I think we hit it off right away, and it was a magical evening. I believe that one was at TPC Scottsdale. That's where they had the party that night, and it was a lot of fun. And yeah, we busted some balls. We talked some football. It was a great night, and I just lament that we don't get to do it more often, Jerry.
Yeah, I believe the band was Outfield. Am I right about that?
No, that's the Scott Zolak, the Josie song, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I vaguely remember the details are sketchy. I remember that Kid from Kid and Play was there, or maybe Play. I don't know. Like 90s hip hop was always kind of your milieu, and I was kind of in the dark about that. But John Clayton was there. And you realized why John Clayton is a frigging rock star.
Yes.
Like, where people, maybe like Woody Page was there. I just remember I got to chill, as the kids say, with Ben Vollin and a lot of the other writers. And that was I actually am part of the Boston media scene moment, right? That was me as Henry Hill coming out of juvie, and all the other maid guys are like, hey, look at you busted your cherry.
But so that's what makes you feel welcome and made, is hanging out with Boston media guys.
That moment did. Yeah. Actually,
you know what? No expectations there, Jerry.
No, what I really felt like I belonged the next day when we were at the Pats hotel for the media availabilities. And I think you and I were fairly banged up. Like in a good way, responsibly. Mothers Against Drunk Driving. We weren't behind the wheel at all, right?
No, the NFL provides buses. It's a great service.
Exactly. And it was fun. And maybe that's when I realized that, all right, Ben Vollin, well, maybe runs afoul of Patriots fandom in a way that maybe I don't, is a good guy. And I've brought that up many, many times. And so that's why you're here.
Well, thank you. That's frankly, Jerry, one of the nicest things anyone's ever said about me. So I appreciate that. And you're a good guy too. I know we've had it out on Twitter before, but to me, it's all in good fun. And what fun is sports if everyone's agreeing with each other all the time? It's about arguing and getting after it a little bit, right?
Right. Which is why when I thought about having you on, a perfect time would be after the Cowboys game, because that sort of was one that you could look at months ago if not weeks ago, and say, all right, that's going to be a challenge. And even during the summer, you could look at it and say, best case scenario, the Cowboys probably are going to check every box in those stupid tail of the tape things that people do. Better offensive line. Yeah. Okay. Better weapons. Sure. Better quarterback. Yeah. I'll give you that. So the fact that the Patriots hung with them, but lost has me my brain is turned into a absolute balloon animal right now. So I'm going to ask you, as somebody who covers them every day for a living, what is this Patriots team? Because I couldn't be more confused.
So are you relishing in Moral Victory Monday here, Jerry? Is that where your head's at right now?
No, I don't believe in moral victories. I said this last week. I said this after the Brady game. I'm a Patriots honk first and foremost. If you haven't picked up on that, like I'm not a neutral observer. I prefer the kind of victories that are as immoral as possible. Right. Give me deflated footballs and give me them getting the lucky calls and, all that crap they've always been, accused of, but actually count as a W during the tiebreakers. Like if you go through the whole list of NFL tiebreakers for a playoff spot, the final one is coin flip. Moral victories doesn't factor into that at all. So no. I don't want to feel that way. I know I came onto this game miserable, and Nick and I would texting each other and practically suicidal about it. And as I wrote about it Monday morning, I was able to kind of process through and say they went toe to toe with one of the best teams in the NFL. Why don't I feel good about it? Should I feel good about it, or should I be just stress eating and maybe taking painkillers?
Yeah, well, I don't know about the last part, but
okay,
maybe
we don't advocate abuse of drugs on this show. Thank you very much.
Certainly not. Yeah. Maybe just pop open a bag of Cheez-Its or something. But, to me, there's not as much of a moral victory in this one as there was maybe when you lost to the Bucs a couple weeks ago. I know the Cowboys are an excellent team, and their offense is phenomenal. Dak Prescott, he blew me away again yesterday. I think he's unbelievable. And you put him and Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson. To me, that's your, top three for MVP right now. But I don't know. The only reason I feel like the Patriots were even in this game is because the Cowboys kind of let you hang around. They have 12 penalties, 2 red zone turnovers. The Patriots definitely deserve credit for some of that. Justin Bethel made a great play on the ball to deflect for the interception. The goal line stand was phenomenal. It wasn't just a goal line stand. It was 4 straight plays from the 1 yard line. So, right. I mean, that's not necessarily luck, but I think you have to look at it generally speaking. The Cowboys are probably going to score most of those opportunities. The 2 red zone turnovers were a little fluky. The Cowboys could have put up 50 yesterday if they played a cleaner game, and the Patriots, they played scared again. To me, it's just completely everything that the Patriots have done this year is completely the opposite of what we've come to expect from Bill Belichick teams. And I was, I'm reading the Wickersham book right now, and he goes back to the 2009 Do Your Job piece where Belichick is talking to the team. He's like, one thing we're not going to do is play scared. And he's talking, this is the guy.
This is the 4th and 2 play where
went for it on 4th and 2 and kind of revolutionized the way people think about going for it on 4th down. And now it's like every time they get 4th and short, he turns into a fraidy cat. He's kicking long field goals or he's punting it away, playing for field position. As soon as they punted away on 4th and 3 in overtime, everyone in the building knew the game was over. The Patriots just were not stopping the Cowboys. I think on the Cowboys' last 5 drives, they had 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals, and a missed field goal. So the Patriots hadn't shown any ability to stop them. And Belichick's still punting the ball away on 4th and 3. And to me, that's just kind of like the old mentality of let's play defense and field position. But in today's NFL, that's almost a fool's errand because offenses are so good now and the Patriots defense isn't that good. They haven't really stopped anyone for the most part. So to me, this win doesn't feel good just because the Cowboys let you hang around and then you didn't play to win. You didn't put the game in Mac's hands. Even if you lose by going for it, at least you're going down swinging. And at least you're showing Mac and the offense that, hey, we have faith in you and we have confidence that you're going to pick this up. And I think they're sending the opposite message by punting and kicking all the time. Hey, we don't think you can pick up a yard. Even though Tampa Bay is missing their top 4 corners, we don't think you can pick up this 4th and 3. Belichick's just not putting enough, faith and trust in this offense right now. And to me, it's like, if you decided to go with the rookie quarterback in Mac Jones, so you got to start coaching like it. You put your faith in him. Let's do it. So, to me, the Bucs loss was a pretty good loss. This doesn't feel like a good loss for them. This feels like this was a game where it just displayed how far off the Patriots are from being a contender.
You know what? As you're saying this, I can already hear a lot of our target audience like jumping on me for not jumping on you. But I'm gonna stop you when you say something that I disagree with. I will take a slight pause and say, yeah, the 2 goal line stands, the 2 turnovers were them making plays, right? I mean, 4th and 1, and you get a stop by Bentley on Elliott. Then you get a stop by Kyle Duggar on Elliott. Then you had Matt Judon, who has been arguably their best player, diving over a pile to stop Prescott. And then Bentley again with the punch out, and after Damian Harris gets one punched out at the exact same situation, I just say, okay, the goal line punch out taketh away and the goal line punch out giveth. So I credit them for that as opposed to saying it's luck. But your larger point that the defense couldn't make a stop to save their lives, and the weird timidity, if I'm using the right word here, from Belichick and McDaniels, especially in those short yardage situations like you're talking about, it's inexplicable to me. I don't get how you don't look at this team and say, the best thing we have going for us right now is the quarterback. So why don't we rely on him instead of shying away from him? And there's no better example. I don't think you specifically mentioned this, but the end of the half, you just made that stop on the goal line. The crowd is into it. The defense is into it. Instead of being down by 3 at the half, you have a chance to, increase your lead. And they took a knee. What do you chalk that up to? They had 2 timeouts and a minute and a half to go on their own 20 with all the emotion and all the momentum. Why is it that you think that they are deciding let's just play for the kickoff after the half?
Yeah. And Belichick's response that, well, we did it because we knew we were getting the ball after the half. That doesn't make sense, because this is the team that, again, invented the double score, and the analytics are clear that if you can get the score before the half and after the half, that massively improves your chances of winning. It's easy to say that, well, Belichick's just not showing faith in his rookie quarterback, but I think it's really in the offense as a whole. And I think that it's because they had 4 backups playing on the offensive line, and then they bring in Onwenu and Wynn, and those guys haven't practiced much over the last couple of weeks. So to me, it's about the offensive line as much as anything. This was a team that was supposed to have, everyone's talking about, Patriots have a top 5 offensive line. They're bringing back 4 starters and adding Trent Brown, and this is, they're not going to rely on Mac Jones. They're going to be able to carry Mac Jones, and he just has to be a bystander and just not mess up. And Mac Jones, I think, to your point, has been one of their better players on offense, and the protection in front of him has been a disaster. I hate to say it. It reminds me, putting my way back hat on, it reminds me of David Carr in the Houston Texans back in 2002, 2003. They made him the number 1 pick. And I've talked to Charlie Casserly about this, Bill Belichick's favorite GM, Charlie Casserly.
He's been right about as much as the weatherman. one of my favorite Belichick just slaps in the face of ever heard. But
that is an all-time insult right there. Yeah. But so they drafted David Carr, number 1, and they put him in there, and he got beaten to crap. 72 sacks. I think it's still a record for a rookie. And he was just never the player that they thought he was, because he just got beaten up so much as a youngster. And Charlie, they assigned Tony Vaselli, and they were supposed to have a great offensive line that year, but then Tony Vaselli did a surprise retirement. His body just couldn't do it anymore. And their other offensive tackle had some issue, and their offensive line was a mess. And Cass really said, had we known at the draft what our offensive line situation was going to be like, we never would have drafted the quarterback. And I don't think that's where the Patriots are, but I do wonder if maybe they wouldn't have picked Mac to start if they had known how bad the offensive line would be, because they're just not protecting for him. And he, that one sack that Kajus gave up, I mean, everyone in the stadium could feel that hit. And, Mac Jones's body left an imprint on the ground after that hit.
And that was the strip sack, right? And,
Yes,
and he got straight up a breakdown. And I liked Kajust as, as a prospect and a guy who's had to be on the bench for a couple of years. And straight up, whatever his call was on that one, he blew it. I think even a more egregious one, although the ball didn't come loose, was Isaiah Wynn, and it was by Gregory again, where he just pushed him back into Jones he was on figure skates and he was about to do a throw triple Salchow. Thank you. That's my one figure skating reference for this show. I've bagged my limit. And you're like, okay, Wynn is a guy that they've absolutely relied on. And they're saying, you're our left tackle. We want you to be a generational tackle. And he's getting straight up overpowered as opposed to like a breakdown from a backup quarterback. So, yeah, and I would say that that's a nice logical reason to not rely on your quarterback is because you don't trust the line. But last week was arguably, with the backups, with 80% backups in there, was their best performance by that unit of the season. And then, okay.
And they'd been hitting chunk plays against the Cowboys in the first half. I mean, they put up the 2 touchdowns early, and Mac had a few throws over 20 yards. So, yeah, I'm with you. Put him in shotgun, 5 wide, spread out the defense, quick throws, move 45 yards or not even, and try to get in the field goal range. Instead, they take a knee into the half. It's disappointing. And Belichick, he's lost his nerves a little bit. He doesn't have Ernie Adams anymore. He doesn't have Nick Caserio, both those guys in the press box, helping him with the numbers and helping him point out all the little tendencies throughout the game. Matt Patricia's in that role now, and Patricia's really the only guy that Belichick trusts. But Belichick just seems like in a funk, just out of it. And I think, a lot of turnover amongst his, his inner circle. I think that probably has a lot to do with it.
So would you be fine with them just sort of trusting Jones more? And I don't want to let Josh McDaniels off the hook either, because I think his play calling gets crazy conservative. I mean, like to the point where he's going to have a show on Fox in primetime soon. Like what has this kid shown that you don't trust him to let it loose when the alternative is to, keep on doing what you did against New Orleans? Let him try to win you games until he proves he can't, because as you just said, he was throwing deep upfield successfully. You had very few sideline passes or checkdowns or whatever. One of my favorites was one that he completed up the seam to Ramondre Stevenson. Yeah. So here's a rookie and a 245-pound power back. And they had the 2 wide guys in the backfield, and they do the handoff, the play action to Jonnu Smith, who was lined up alongside him. And then they get Stevenson one-on-one with the rookie linebacker, Micah Parsons, that we're all flipping out about. And he delivered the ball on the money for 25 yards. And I go, give me that all day long until the Cowboys prove they can't do it. But the next time you see them with the ball, it's dive plays and 3 and outs. And I really don't get why they see their better alternative is to keep the leash on Jones instead of just saying, let's see how far this kid can take us.
Well, he is a rookie, and there's still a lot that he hasn't seen, and he's throwing some picks and taking some sacks. And so I understand not completely just taking the reins off, a Zach Wilson situation where go out there and sling it, and then he's throwing 4 picks a game. I don't think they need that, but I would like to see them be more aggressive just in situational football, because obviously being conservative isn't working for them either. They lost the Bucs game because they didn't go for it on fourth down, and I think they lost against the Cowboys because several times they didn't go for it on fourth down or go for points before the half. So I'll tell you this: the NFL has never, the coaches have never been more trusting of the analytics. The whole, I think fourth down conversions are at an all-time high. 2-point conversions the last few years have been at an all-time high. I'd love to see playing the numbers, showing aggression, and putting faith and confidence in your players. So to me, it's like, if you're going to lose, go down swinging. And so I promise you this, I will never criticize Belichick if they lose a game because they went for it on 4th and 2 from midfield or whatever, and they didn't get it. And that's okay. I'm not going to play the result like that. I like the aggression. I like putting the confidence in your guys. And I think there are some good long-term effects to that too, where, it didn't work out now, but the team has the confidence, and Mac Jones, maybe the next time, will have more confidence to be able to, convert that play. So I will never criticize Belichick for going down swinging.
All right, quickly, before I kick it to Nick, you have a reputation, Ben, of being a bit of a contrarian, let's just say. Is that, I don't think I'm tarring you with an epithet by saying that.
How
right?
dare you?
Okay. Where were you on 4th and 2? Because that was a crazy controversy that still gets talked about to this day. Like a regular season game, I think it was like November, and a coach makes a decision in a primetime game, and it had a gate suffix. It was 4th and 2 gate. Like, where did you stand on that? Because I was like, I get the logic. Their defense was struggling. The same reason why I think he should have gone for it on 4th and 3 from midfield. But he also had Kevin Falk, who was a third down conversion machine. But were you criticizing him at that time, or were you saying, okay, I'm with Belichick for being aggressive?
Well, at the time, it was 2009. So yep. I was a 27-year-old kid working in Florida covering the Gators at the time. So I don't know how much, energy and I put into the whole, controversy back then. But I want to think that I was okay with it. Like, I understood Belichick's rationale. And even back then, that's when you saw the math nerds coming out and saying, no, that was the right decision. And obviously, clearly, Peyton Manning, that Colts offense wasn't being stopped all night, and the Patriots weren't going to shut them down either way. So I'd like to think that I was okay with Belichick making the decision. And like I said, showing some aggression and putting some faith in his guys. And Kevin Falk was like 2 inches away from converting that thing. It was close. So it's not like, they got blown up on the play and it was just a disaster. But and that was before, the real analytics revolution took over. That was before. Back then, you always punted on 4th and 2. Right. Last night on Sunday, we saw Mike McCarthy go for it on 4th and 2 from his own end early in the first quarter. I think twice. They didn't get it once. They got it another time. Now those decisions have become common. So yeah. I think Belichick helped ignite that discussion with that play. And now, to me, again, it's just strange that he's on the other side of the coin now. Do you know that I was looking this up today? The Patriots they've only gone for it on 4th down 3 times this year, which is tied for second fewest in the league. And all 3 of those attempts were in the final 2 minutes in the Saints game when they were down by 2 touchdowns. So they have not gone for it on 4th down throughout the course of a normal game yet the entire season. So it's been very conservative. When it's 4th down, we kick, we punt, or we do a field goal attempt or whatever. And, I'd like to see it. Obviously is not working because they keep losing these games. So I'd like to see Belichick show some fortitude, put some faith in his offense, and let them go out there and try to make a play.
And young Nick, what do you got for us?
All right. So, Ben, to your point earlier about the offensive line struggles and our D-line struggles, or our defense struggles and all, I see what you mean. The secondary, to me, seemed like they were slacking the entire night. But the craziest part is I think the Patriots' defensive line outplayed the Cowboys. And we held Ezekiel Elliott to 69 yards. When was the last time that Zeke didn't get going like that? And our offensive line, yes, we struggled at times, but the Cowboys were under penalties all night. You had Tyron Smith getting called every single, I thought he should have been called more often, but he was getting called for holds pretty frequently, and he was just getting blown up off the end. And for that dude to get blown up, it was, I think, is incredible by our defensive line, Matt Judon, and all the guys down there. But I wanted to hear what you had to say, because I think the D-line played well. The secondary struggled at times, but I think our O-line did not do terrible.
The offensive line wasn't great the other night. Let's be honest. Matt, the sacks that Mac took were inexcusable. Just guys getting beaten right around the edge and Mac getting planted into the turf. And I think that's why we saw Belichick playing musical chairs, with the tackles. Wind goes in, wind goes out. Haran goes in, Haran goes out. So I'm just looking up the stats here real quick. Patriots had 1, 2, 3, 4 hits on Dak all night, and Dak dropped back to pass 51 times.
51 times.
So, and they blitzed a lot, and they brought a lot of zero blitzes. And I'm telling you, Dak was so this is confusing. We got Mac versus Dak, and next week is Mac versus Zach. So Dak's not known necessarily as a mobile quarterback, but his ability to just kind of, sidestep the rush, throw on the run, he was unbelievable. And yeah, I think Belichick, we all know he tries to take away the team's top option and make you play left-handed. So I think for them, that was, let's try to take out Zeke, and we think we can hold them in these one-on-one matchups on the outside. And I think you have to give a lot of credit to CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper and Dalton Schultz and some of these. I mean, and Zeke Elliott did have 7 catches for 50 yards. One thing I noticed sitting up in the press box was the Patriots defense was just like, get back. Devin McCourty's playing 20 yards off the ball. They played a lot of deep zone. They just did not want to get beaten deep. Dak's longest pass of the day was 35 yards, but he had, I think, 7 completions over 20. So he did a nice job of kind of chewing them up on the short to medium range stuff. But, I've seen a lot of criticism in the last 24 hours of the Patriots defense. The pass rush is anemic. The secondary stinks. I put that all on the offense. The offense could not stay on the field. They had 50 plays, and they needed overtime just to get to 50 plays. The Cowboys had 82. I think their total snap count was 89. The defense was just totally gassed for the Patriots. And, the time of possession was crazy. The craziest stat from the night was the Patriots had one drive that lasted more than 5 plays. They had a 13-play touchdown drive, I think in the fourth quarter or late third quarter. Every other drive was 3, 4, or 5 plays. So they just did not stay on the field, sustain drives, give the defense a break. And I just think the defense just got worn out against Dak and the Cowboys on Sunday. So
yeah, I'm with you in a lot of that. Like my frustration with the defense reached like 2009 levels. And I don't say that lightly, because that was that sort of era between Asante Samuel and Akeem Talib. So you had a lot of Wheatleys and Will Heights, and there's a theory that statistically speaking, when they faced Drew Brees in that season, that famous clip where Belichick has turned into Brady on the sideline going, I just can't get these guys to do what I want them to do. There's people that will tell you that game by Brees was statistically the greatest game by a quarterback in NFL history. Like he had a perfect passer rating, but it was better than the other ones. This felt like that, just in terms of every single time they did that, the Cowboys did that, that play action, misdirection, and then roll the pocket. And Prescott throwing on the run was a completion. And like you said, they were not short. They were first downs. They were 20-yarders, including the final one to CeeDee Lamb. But yeah, by overtime, absolutely, they were gassed. They reminded me of the Falcons in the Super Bowl, where when they got to overtime, you realized if the Patriots get the ball, they're getting a touchdown. And if this game goes 8 more quarters, they will score a touchdown every single possession. And that's how I felt with that. And I don't know what to put that on. Like, were they just playing contain? Were they saying, well, we can't blitz this guy? And when they did, that was again the winning score. It felt like, let's give them a cushion. Let's play cover 3. The cornerback's dropping off, and McCourty playing in the deep safety, and Prescott just kept taking what they gave him. And some of that looked like, they were stopping the run. No, it's just because the Cowboys it would have been malfeasance for them to not just keep running that misdirection rollout completion thing.
Jerry, you're making me kind of reevaluate where I'm at in my life, because I find myself agreeing with you a lot here, and it's leaving me unsettled a little bit. I literally during the game was thinking about that 2009 clip too, where Belichick says to Brady, I can't get these guys to play how I want. Just because watching that game, it seemed like Bill was just throwing everything at them. It wasn't like one tactic. It was, we're going to rush 7. Now we're going to drop 8. We're going to blitz 5. We're going to play zone. We're going to play man. It's like, I can just see the thought bubbles above Belichick's head. Like, I'm doing everything and nothing is stopping the Cowboys right now. I think a lot of the credit just has to go to Dak and that offense. They're fantastic. And that's why, like, the Cowboys every year, they get a lot of hype. And that's why it's hard to know where this team really is, but they're for real this year, and they're a little boom and busts. You know, Trevon Diggs is not going to get an interception every week. They're not going to, they keep committing those kind of penalties and those kind of mistakes. A good team's going to get them. But their offense is unbelievable. And Dak, I mean, talk about just hitting the lottery, 4th round pick, and just has blown everyone away. And where is he, in his 5th year now, 6th year? Like, his development is just unbelievable. So he's so much fun to watch, and the Cowboys got lucky there with what they got in him. And that's kind of what every team hopes, is that you hit the lottery like they did with Dak. And, I was having this conversation with Eric Scalavino with Patriots.com last night. We're talking about Mac Jones and everything. And I thought he made a good point. He's like, even like last year, Justin Herbert, everyone's like, wow, Justin Herbert, everyone's blown away by him. And he was fantastic. What were the Chargers, 6-10? Like, even when rookie quarterbacks play well, it's still hard for them to win. And we focus on the few that do win, but most of them don't as rookies. And so I went into this season with high hopes. I feel like you spend all that money in free agency to win, not to quote rebuild. But I think now we're at the point of the season where you just hope that Mac stays healthy, gets good experience this year, and then comes ready in year 2, guns blazing. And everyone they signed this offseason, it was all like 2-year guarantees, so they have this core of the team for 2 years. This year is starting to look like a wash, but it's hard to bring it all together. It's hard to buy a team in free agency, and it's hard to have all these new faces and have it come together seamlessly. I think that's what we're learning this year, but the hope is that they get their growing pains out of the way now, and maybe next year they can come out and be ready to compete.
Right. Fact that people, I think, tend to forget, because Elliott got hurt last year before he went down in that freakish, horrific injury, that it's one of those things I still try not to look at, because I think at some point I'm going to be having intimate times with the Irish Rose, and I'm going to think of that and just like, I know I have to go. I have to leave the bedroom. I'm just going to watch TV the rest of the night, because I am thinking about that horrible injury by Elliott. Prior to that, and sorry, that's too much information.
You mean Dak Prescott, right?
Dak Prescott, excuse me. Prior to that injury, he was averaging 370 yards per game. He was on a pace for 6,000 yards. And this year it's down to more like, going into this one, it was like 270 yards per game. But because they've just kind of dialed it back and they're going for a balance or whatever. And then the Pats give up 454 yards to him. And I don't think that's was their game plan. That they were going in to bend, not break, but that's not bending. That's just laying down and letting a guy just run all over you. But to get back to your point about Jones, where do you think he is? Because in the short time that we have left, because you've been really generous with your time, do you think that he's a guy that can take this team into double-digit wins and competing for a playoff spot? If not this year, then next. Are you impressed with what you're seeing out of him, or those of us who are we just kind of, seeing too much?
You got the Patriots colored glasses on there, Jerry.
I don't have another kind. It's all I have, and please just forgive me if I'm trying to find something that I can feel good about. Damn you. This is why I had you on here. I'm just trying to stare into the skid, because you're the guy who's going to try to bring us down to earth. But sincerely, like, you have to feel good about him, even though Justin Herbert isn't necessarily that guy that's, going to threaten Patrick Mahomes for the AFC title. But they're checking the box, at least at quarterback. Am I wrong?
I think Mac has shown a lot this year. tough situation. He only started 17 games in college, so he's kind of raw, and he's coming in. It's a tough transition. Another reason I was surprised, Belichick always talks about how tough it is for rookies to transition right away from college to pros. It's been a long year for Mac to go right from his bowl season where he played extra games because they won the championship to go right into Senior Bowl or combine training and pre-draft stuff, and then there's just no offseason for the rookies, and then physically they have to get bigger too. So that's another reason I thought they were going to start the season with Cam. But to me, it's not just what I see, but what I'm impressed with is what you hear from other people. And to a man, everyone who sees Mac Jones play and has played against him talks about how good he's looked and how tough he is. And I think the toughness is a big part of it. And that's one thing we saw around here for 20 years. Tom Brady, not just the best quarterback, but I think one of the toughest. And that's a real underrated attribute that he's shown over the years. And I love the fact that when Mac gets drilled, he just bounces right back up and jogs off to the sideline. Yesterday, it looked like even on that sack strip, he started jogging off before the play was totally over. I'd have to go back and look at it, but he started walking off, and I wasn't quite sure the play was over. But that's also just his mentality. Like, don't let the opponent see you in a weak moment. Get back up, jog to the sideline. Don't chew anyone out. And he takes a lot of hits and he stands in there. And I think you have to like that after throwing that pick yesterday, he comes right back, goes right after Trevon Diggs on the next play and throws a 75-yard touchdown. So, yeah, it's unfortunate they're not winning. And I thought they would have more this year, especially with all the money they spent. So I'm not going to act like I'm happy that that's what this season is turning into. Like, oh, let's just get our quarterback some reps and some experience. But he's shown some good toughness. He's not physically, like the thing with Mahomes and Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, a lot of the top young quarterbacks, even Herbert, they're physical specimens. And that's not Mac. He doesn't run around and he doesn't have the biggest arm. So he's going to have to win with his brains, and it's going to take him a little time to get there. There are very few, if any, rookie quarterbacks that can win with their brains right away. It takes a few years. But I do think they have a good baseline with Mac Jones, and hopefully he stays healthy this year. Like, you look at Joe Burrow, he had a pretty good rookie year, but then he comes out in year 2 and he's on fire, and everything is just clicking for him. So I think you hope that the same happens with Mac Jones. And I think he's shown enough that he can take that progression in his career.
So you disagree with Rex Ryan, who said he's a pea shooter at quarterback?
What does that mean? What is Rex saying?
I guess, like, he's throwing spitballs, like he's got a weak arm. It's like, you know what? Look, if Rex Ryan didn't exist, I would have had to invent him because he's the perfect comic foil. But dude, you got Mark Sanchez, and then you got Geno Smith, and then you got EJ Manuel, all of whom were drafted in the top, 60 players overall, maybe 40 players. And you turned them into nothing. And now you're going to sit there behind a desk, ripping on the Patriots' choice of quarterback with every chin on your face. Like, Rex Ryan, you have no standing in this. And yet I was happy when he said it, because I said, this is exactly what Patriots fans need to rally behind this kid who has exceeded expectations. I think that's fair to say, right? I mean, no one was expecting that he was going to come in and throw for 40 touchdowns, but has at the very least shown that he has an understanding of NFL football, right? Like, there's never been a moment that it felt like the game was too big for him. And you just had the perfect example. He throws that pick six, and let's face it, you throw a pick six to Trevon Diggs, you're not in an exclusive club. They're growing membership all the time. And then the very next play, he throws that 75-yarder. So I think, this is the biggest question going into the season. I think has been asked and answered in a positive way.
Yeah, I think so. But it's still only 6 games. And, teams are going to get a book on him too. So it's all about how do you adjust, and how does Mac handle that, in the second and third years when the teams have more film on him. Is he going to be able to take that next step as well? So I wouldn't say the book is, case closed. Mac Jones is going to be a Pro Bowl quarterback. I still think he's got a lot to prove. But, to what Rex is saying, arm strength is obviously important, and everyone's wowed by some of the throws that Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen can make. But it's also, I think, an underrated or an overrated attribute of quarterbacks. Peyton Manning with the Broncos had a glass arm and set all kinds of records for passing touchdowns and passing yards and won a Super Bowl at the end. He could barely throw the ball. One of my favorite quarterbacks of all time is Chad Pennington, another guy who had no arm strength, but unbelievable accuracy and anticipation. And that's what you hope Mac Jones is, that eventually he can be the guy that moves the chess pieces around pre-snap, wins the play before the snap happens, can manipulate the defense. He's not going to do it with his physical attributes, which makes it tougher. But he has great coaching and I think a great temperament and great toughness, and has shown to have a pretty good head on his shoulders. So I think he's on his way to developing into a good quarterback, but he's not there yet. And, he's been good for a rookie. Like, I think that caveat is important. He's been the best rookie, but he's still a rookie. The Patriots offense is still only scoring I think they got 3 touchdowns the other night, but they're not, or 4 touchdowns even, but they're not scoring enough points. And Belichick clearly doesn't have faith in the offense right now. So they still have a little bit of a ways to go.
My question, Ben, it's kind of general, and feel free to just pass on this, like if you're uncomfortable with it. But your relationship with Patriots fans in general, how would you characterize that? And it's not your job to suck up to them or whatever, but I mean, do you feel like you've got a friendly, contentious relationship with your reading audience, or is it nasty? I mean, I have no idea how much vitriol you take or dish out or whatever, but overall, you've been in here from Miami for how many years now? I want to say it's
my 9th season. Yeah.
9th season. Okay. How do you feel about your target audience and how it's going with that? I'm always fascinated with how the Boston media regards the people that they talk to.
You'll be surprised to hear this, but the reaction on Twitter can be pretty negative.
No,
I know that's a surprise. You generally hear from the most passionate people on Twitter, and you have to understand that the Twitter's like the cheap seats, and it's like, if I walk back past the cheap seats and everyone's booing, you're not going to sit there and respond to each one individually and say, no, let me argue with you and tell you why I'm right. They just want to boo at you and have fun and use curse words and stuff. And so that's what Twitter is to me. So it's nasty online. I don't have a great feel for it because, frankly, I mute a lot of people and I just block them out of my life. And
you're not alone in Boston media. I've found, like, that's that I think sometimes guys get together and they compare how many people they've muted.
Right.
Like, it's like showing pictures of your kids. Like, hey, I'm really proud of my kid. I've got 270. I've got 2,700 mutes.
Right. But then every single person I meet, like, in person, is always, I've never met an asshole in person. No one ever says that stuff to your face. Although actually I do have a good story kind of like that. So before I got married in 2016, it was actually 2015, my wife and I went out to Lucky's in Fort Point area to see a band that we were thinking about for our wedding. And it was the night before that crazy Eagles game against Chip Kelly. And some like college kid, he's like, hey, are you Ben Vollin? We're like waiting in line. I'm like, yeah, what's up, man? And he's like, what do you think of the game? I was like, oh, they'll kick the crap out of the Eagles. That team sucks, And we talked for 5 minutes and he was super cool. And I, happy to give him my time or whatever. And he was like so nice. And then the next day, of course, the Patriots had that horrible loss. And all of a sudden I see him tweeting at me, that asshole Ben Vollin last night told me they were winning. What a freaking fraud he is. And I was like, hey, man, what happened? I thought we were cool. So, I can't predict them all, I guess. But it's the people you meet in person are all very complimentary. And I hear a lot like, don't let them off the hook. Keep going after Bill. Keep asking those questions, stuff like that. So you don't always see those comments on social media, but you get a mix of that.
Oh yeah, I'm convinced that Twitter, all social media, is like road rage. like you scream at somebody because they're a big metal box with 4 rubber wheels. They're not a human being. So I take it from that perspective. Like, they're ones and zeros. Yes, they want me to kill myself. They want me to die a horrible death or whatever. But if you talk to them in person, they're just gonna, it's just stuff. It's just talking. But I have no mutes. I have no mutes, and I have
you don't
no
mute
bots.
a single person.
Nah, you know what? I kind of like to know where they are and what they're thinking. Like if someone really hates me, okay, I want to keep tabs on them. The way they put those tracking tags on shark fins so that they can see how close they come to shore. Yeah, I want to. In fact, I like the people who really hate everything that I care about in front of microphones. Like I like them on the radio. I like them calling into talk shows or whatever, because then now I know what they think. But I can tell you this, that you are a guy that, while our Venn diagrams of fans like don't maybe have the same overlap, because I'm coming from people with a certain I don't know, loyalty to this team, and you're coming from a more objective standpoint, if that's fair to say. You're a good guy, and I've told people that all the time. And I know I'm going to disappoint people by not, I don't know, putting like a laser pointer on your forehead and pulling the trigger.
Well, I'm waiting for the sneak attack here, Jerry. I'm waiting for it tonight.
Oh, it's not going to happen, because you're a good guy, and the Patriots are 2-4. You know what I mean? If they was 6-0 and you were talking about them like they're 2-4, okay, then we'd have problems. But I'm like everybody else who grew up being emotionally attached to this team, trying to dig out of this this morass that they're in, where they keep playing to the level of their opponent and beating the crap teams, but not being able to make a couple of plays that they need to beat the really good teams, which we've seen for 20 years. So that's where I stand. And this was good. This was cathartic for me.
Yeah.
This was an important part of my therapy as I go through the whole process of trying to get back to some sense of normalcy. So,
well, if Trolling Vollin thinks Mac Jones is good, then you can sleep well at night, right?
oh, there we go. Well, Ben Vollin, you're a blast. I hope very soon, I don't know how it'll happen, but to be hung over with you again at another Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, you got that Barstool money now. They got to send you Super Bowls, man.
I'm holding out for a duck boat. That's what I want. I want a spot on the duck boat. Carabas got on the Red Sox in 2018. I think they owe me at least that much, or a ride on Aircraft One. Again, am I asking too much?
I think that one sounds reasonable. I hate to say it, the duck boats. I mean, the Red Sox now, that's our best chance. But
Yeah.
if that doesn't happen, I don't know when the Patriots are getting back on a duck boat anytime.
Spoken like someone who works for the Globe, who owns the Red Sox. But no, this is great. And if I get on Aircraft One, I'm running a bombing mission over the Vollin house. No, I'm not, because you're a good guy. Hey, buddy, thanks very much for coming on. Please throw out your Twitter handle and where everyone can follow you, and let's
yeah, thank you. If I haven't muted you already, please follow me at Ben Vollin, and please subscribe to the Boston Globe. I know a lot of you are probably rolling your eyes at that as well, but good, accurate news is important in this day and age, and the Globe, I feel like we try to do a pretty good job in a public service. So please sign up at bostonglobe.com.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Ben Vollin. We'll be back next week with another guest who maybe isn't such a contrarian. I'm not really sure, but hopefully we'll be talking about a victory, because they're playing the friggin' Jets. If they can't win that, then what hope do we have? So thanks very much, Nick. Thanks to you, Ben Vollin, for joining us. We'll talk to you guys next week. Sláinte.